Albus Dumbledore on Babbity Rabbity and her Cackling Stump. The story of Babbity Rabbity and her Cackling Stump is in many ways the most real of Beedle's tales, in that the magic described in the story conforms almost entirely to known magical laws. It was through this story that many of us first discovered that magic could not bring back the dead, and a great disappointment and shock it was, convinced as we had been as young children that our parents would be able to awaken our dead rats and cats with one wave of their wands. Though some 6 centuries have elapsed since Beedle wrote this tale, and while we have devised innumerable ways of maintaining the illusion of our loved one's continuing presence, wizarding photographs and portraits move, and in the case of the latter, talk just like their subjects. Other rare objects, such as the Mirror of Erised, may also reveal more than a static image of a lost loved one. Ghosts are transparent, moving, talking, and thinking versions of wizards and witches who wished, for whatever reason, to remain on Earth. JK. Wizards still have not found a way of reuniting body and soul once death has occurred. As the eminent wizarding philosopher Bertrand de Pensées Profondes writes in his celebrated work, A Study into the Possibility of Reversing the Actual and Metaphysical Effects of Natural Death, with particular regard to the reintegration of essence and matter, give it up. It's never going to happen. The tale of Babbity Rabbity does, however, give us one of the earliest literary mentions of an animagus, for Babbity the washerwoman is possessed of the rare magical ability to transform into an animal at will. Animagi make up a small fraction of the wizarding population. Achieving perfect, spontaneous human-to-animal transformation requires much study and practice, and many witches and wizards consider that their time might be better employed in other ways. Certainly the application of such talent is limited unless one has great need of disguise or concealment. It is for this reason that the Ministry of Magic has insisted upon a register of animagi, for there can be no doubt that this kind of magic is of greatest use to those engaged in surreptitious, covert, or even criminal activity. Professor McGonagall, headmistress of Hogwarts, has asked me to make clear that she became an animagus merely as a result of her extensive researches into all fields of transfiguration, and that she has never used the ability to turn into a tabby cat for any surreptitious purpose, setting aside legitimate business on behalf of the Order of the Phoenix, where secrecy and concealment were imperative. JKR. Whether there was ever a washerwoman who was able to transform into a rabbit is open to doubt. However, some magical historians have suggested that Beedle modelled Babbity on the famous French sorceress Lucette de Lapine, who was convicted of witchcraft in Paris in 1422. To the astonishment of her Muggle guards, who were later tried for helping the witch to escape, Lucette vanished from her prison cell the night before she was due to be executed. Although it has never been proven that Lucette was an animagus who managed to squeeze through the bars of her cell window, a large white rabbit was subsequently seen crossing the English Channel in a cauldron with a sail fitted to it, and a similar rabbit later became a trusted adviser at the court of King Henry VI. This may have contributed to that Muggle king's reputation for mental instability. The king in Beedle's story is a foolish Muggle who both covets and fears magic. He believes that he can become a wizard simply by learning incantations and waving a wand. As intensive studies in the Department of Mysteries demonstrated as far back as 1672, wizards and witches are born, not created, while the rogue ability to perform magic sometimes appears in those of apparent non-magical descent, though several later studies have suggested that there will have been a witch or wizard somewhere on the family tree. Muggles cannot perform magic. The best or worst they could hope for are random and uncontrollable effects by a genuine magical wand, which, as an instrument through which magic is supposed to be channeled, sometimes holds residual power, and which may discharge at odd moments. See also the notes on wand lore for the tale of the 3 brothers. He is completely ignorant of the true nature of magic and wizards, and therefore swallows the preposterous suggestions of both the charlatan and Babbity. This is certainly typical of a particular type of Muggle thinking. In their ignorance, they are prepared to accept all sorts of impossibilities about magic, including the proposition that Babbity has turned herself into a tree that can still think and talk. It is worth noting at this point, however, that while Beedle uses the talking tree device to show us how ignorant the Muggle King is, he also asks us to believe that Babbity can talk while she is a rabbit. This might be poetic license, but I think it more likely that Beedle had only ever heard about animagi, and never met one, for this is the only liberty that he takes with magical laws in this story. Animagi do not retain the power of human speech while in their human form, although they keep all their human thinking and reasoning powers. This, as every schoolchild knows, is the fundamental difference between being an animagus and transfiguring oneself into an animal. In the case of the latter, one would become the animal entirely, with the consequence that one would know no magic, be unaware that one had ever been a wizard, and would need somebody else to transfigure one back to one's original form. I think it possible that in choosing to make his heroine pretend to turn into a tree and threaten the king with pain like an axe stroke in his own side, Beedle was inspired by real magical traditions and practices. Trees with wand quality wood have always been fiercely protected by the wand makers who tend them, and cutting down such trees to steal them risks incurring not only the malice of the bowtruckles. For a full description of these curious little tree dwellers, see Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, usually nesting there, but also the ill effects of protective curses placed around them by their owners. In Beedle's time, the Cruciatus curse had not yet been made illegal by the Ministry of Magic. The Cruciatus, Imperius, and Avada Kedavra curses were first classified as unforgivable in 1717, with the strictest penalties attached to their use, and could have produced precisely the sensation with which Babbity threatens the king.